Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, Fearless Females. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today we have Suzanne on the program with us, and you are going to love her. Listen, she is just, I just told her, I got off the interview with her and I just said, you have the most joyful spirit. She just makes you feel great about yourself, and she is a happy person to be around, and who couldn't use more happiness in your life? But the thing that I found most interesting about our discussion was just, she talked a little bit about her plans. What she wanted to do was be a mom, and she had plans. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's how she had that's how she'd done her life. That's what she had figured out, and that's what was going to happen. And life took an odd turn, and she ended up, starting a business with her husband and being very successful at it. And she did get around to doing the mom thing. She adjusted the timeline just a bit, but I liked listening to her idea of balancing and her thoughts on how to excel in both places, because like it or not, that's one of the things that I worry about all the time as a mom is if I show up for my business, am I not showing up enough for my kids? If I show up in this spot, am I not giving enough energy to this other thing that I need to give energy to? So I really liked listening to how she kind of coordinated that. And she admits, she's like, I didn't probably make all the best decisions all the time, but this is the way I handled that. So I'm so excited that you guys get to listen to this. Let's get started with Suzanne. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here with Suzanne Mitchell, and she is the president of Zamar Screen Printing. And I'm really excited. I had a chance to just catch up with Suzanne. She is so real. You guys are going to just love hearing her advice. I have loved having the opportunity to chat with her and kind of get the benefit of her wisdom. So I'm so excited that you get to hear it too. Thank you, Suzanne, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So my very first question is always, I'm a reader. I love reading. Tell me about your favorite book.
Favorite book? Well, my favorite business book is definitely How to Win Friends and Influence People. It has affected my business. I don't do all the principles. I'm not a follow, but I'm telling you, there's points in there that really touched me. But personally, I'm a huge advocate of any historical novel. Love romance. And there's a writer by the name of Jenny Dye, and she writes this whole series on specifically women in history. And it's just really empowering to see these women that had all these things to conquer. So I love her series of books.
Oh, that sounds really interesting and right up my alley. I was a history major in college, so historical fiction sounds great.
Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, I love them.
Do they go through big names in history, or is it just normal people?
It's fairly normal people. The main character that kind of carries all the way through is actually a female doctor, and everything she went through being a doctor in those times, and the people that didn't trust her, and the people that thought she was probably less of a person. And this is all about taking that energy for women today and show people you are powerful, you can do this. And that's kind of the theme through the whole book. And so through the whole series, all the things they go through and the heartaches they have, it's really good.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I'm glad you shared that. But if it's a series, it's going to really make my stack a little bit bigger.
That is what happens. I know. You never run out of books to read, ever.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, Suzanne. How did you get started? How did you kind of follow the path to where you're at today? And what do you do? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. Well, I knew right out of high school I didn't want to go to college. It just was not a specific occupation I knew I wanted to do. So I'm like, until I know something, I just want to work. So I started in insurance and quickly made it to an agent, was selling. Sure, that was the path I was going to take. And then I thought, I want to stay home and have kids. I got married, got the house, thought this is going to be my plan. I'm just going to stay home for a while. And my husband worked for a huge screen printer and they had a physical fire. Literally, the building burnt down, the whole company went under, and all these salespeople were set with nobody to do their printing. So my husband said, I think we should start this. I think we should start a screen printing company. And I knew nothing about screen printing, any of the things, but I had a little bit of sales knowledge from doing the insurance. So we continued, we started, and I did not have kids for 10 years while building this business because I was determined not to be 100% full-time, working 80 hours when I had kids. So we waited to have kids, but we built a screen printing, embroidery, and promotional products company. So we kind of do all the branding things that everybody needs in a business or school or those sort of things. And I have definitely taken the lead in the company. I'm definitely the face. They're what people know to be Zamar Screen Printing. And through the years, I've adapted it to be much more relational. I love working with people when I can talk to them and figure out what they need and mentor them. I naturally want to mentor people. And so I think people come to me who just sometimes need help. And it has nothing to do with what I do professionally. So, yeah.
So insurance to screen printing, that is a big, first of all, no one goes into insurance. It is always like the last.
I know, I started there. That's funny. Yeah. I ended up in a receptionist job and very quickly they're like, you need to stop being the receptionist. We got to get you into an agent role. You have too many people skills. Let's do this. And so they kind of quickly rushed me to an agent and it was fine. I had a huge book of business that somebody was retiring. So it worked out. And I did like the people side of it. But what I didn't like was you give people a pack of papers worth $1,000 and they're like, oh, okay. Like it's, I bring a box of t-shirts and people are jumping for joy, literally clapping, so excited, completely different reaction. So I love what I deliver now. I didn't so much like the insurance. So everybody needs it. You have to have it, but it's not exciting. And so this for me was the gift giving side of it is huge.
I think that's so funny, Suzanne, because I am in that position of I'm like, finance is fun. This is so cool. Look at all these, and they're like, okay.
Exactly. That was it for me. I was like, I couldn't get behind it. So got out of that industry.
I love it. So you actually have grown the business side of the business, but did you have a whole lot of running the business experience, or how did that piece go? Cause you're bigger now.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no business experience other than being an insurance agent. So we learned the hard way. We made some crazy mistakes and we grew really big, really fast because we had all these salespeople that worked for this other company. We had tons of business to start with. So that was a great base, except we needed equipment right away. And we were 21, 22. We, had very little credit. So we had to get financing, the not so great way and high percentages. And so we had to learn a lot of hard lessons on how to do things and figure things out. But I think that all of us have a will to survive. And I, in particular, am the little engine that could. Don't tell me I can't. I will figure it out. And I just have that strive. And I think that made a big difference. We just figured it out and plunged through. And yeah, we've been doing this for 30 years now. So we made it.
And so you wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and ended up with 10 years worth of growing the business before you had your kids. So did you end up getting to take time off and stay at home with them, or did you just continue to do both? Or tell me how that went.
Yeah, I think I found a pretty fine mix. They say balance, which I think balance is a rough word. I don't think we're ever 100% balanced. I always think something's winning and something's losing kind of at all times. I did work part-time per se. I worked in the office in the morning, and I had the benefit of my mom and dad living close. So they always watched my kids in the morning when I worked. And then in the afternoon, I was home with them. And so I kind of did a mix of both, and I would say it was hard on the business for me not to be available a lot in the afternoons. Not that I didn't take tons of calls and do bookkeeping at night and, all the things most women have to do to survive. But it was hard on the business. But my absolute first priority was my kids, because I homeschooled my kids amongst all that.
Oh,
So it
wow.
kind of swapped later in life. I stayed home and homeschooled them in the morning and then came to work in the afternoon. And then they were with my mom and dad. So I had some years that were pretty tough to get it all done, but
It sounds like you didn't sleep for a decade, basically.
sometimes I wonder when we did sleep. I'm not really sure where that came in, but you survive. It's amazing.
Awesome.
You're very resilient when you're young. It's good we have kids, before we're 40 for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, looking back over your journey, what's the best investment you've made in yourself? Is there something you've done or invested in or taken a part in that you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I did that. My life just wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah, I can honestly say coaching is the best thing I ever did for myself. I started coaching with a business coach probably by year 2. I had found somebody, and I had different coaches through my 30 years. I've had sales coaches, I've had business coaches. Sometimes they've been borderline life coaches because it was more that I was struggling with that life balance than I was actual business things. I've had more corporate ones that helped me take a bigger leap. And then, but coaching has been worth every penny. I would not go back and change that for the world. Even though I'm not a solopreneur, I had a team, I had other partners, I still bouncing all your stuff off a coach and just unloading with the things you needed help to relook at it. That money was well invested. Yeah.
Where did you find your coaches? Like, how did you find one that worked? It sounds like you had several different.
I had lots of different coaches. They mostly were by introduction from somebody. My first one was I was in a Allie Lassen's Leads, which I don't even think is around anymore. And somebody said, oh, this lady, you should meet her. I think she could help you get networking together. And then I was struggling with sales and somebody introduced me to a guy. So I actually had one male coach, and he was a sales coach, and he was great. He challenged me because I was outgoing on personal stuff, but pretty extroverted when it came to the company. And, one of the things he said to me was, if you have great, great cookies and you never offer them to anybody, how the heck are they going to know you have great cookies? So I have thought of that over the last 20 years when I'm in a social setting and things come up and I think, I just need to mention what I do. I don't have to be salesy. And so many opportunities have opened up. So coaching has taught me so much through the years, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And they are worth their weight in gold a lot of times because you need that. That's, like a little bit financial coaching, like it's like my whole life is like they need someone to bounce ideas off of and bounce thoughts off of and kind of move forward in a way that makes them better and makes sense for them. So I love that idea of and you can use other people's experience too. But how did you, so you were in a place where you already had a customer base. So because coaching comes up over and over again, but how do you afford coaching? How do you not afford coaching, but how do you afford coaching?
Yeah. There was times I'm sure I took a few months off because sales were low and I needed to, catch back up. But any time I could equate sales to when I had coaching. When I left with a plan, whether it was a marketing plan, whether it was a sales list, whatever it is, I could absolutely equate things I did on that list that became an ROI and actual sales. So I could always look at it and go, it doesn't matter if this costs, I know I'm going to make this back. And I always did. I've always made back my money in coaching. So that's what made it, but it was hard in those first years. It was expensive. It was, a line item you had to decide you were going to do, but I'm not sure I could have continued to be the engine that could without it. So I can honestly say, had I not got the coaching help, I'm not sure we could have gone forward. So it was $1 you had to spend,
Yeah.
you just had to spend it to be able to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Super important to think about that too. And what's your ROI? What's the return on that investment of time and energy into the coach and money? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about, I usually say, what's the worst advice someone gave you, but you're like, I got no bad advice. So tell me about what is the best advice you've gotten?
One of the best pieces of advice I got, it was a landlord somewhere along the way for the business. We were in a commercial building and we were struggling. I think I was probably even in there negotiating a little bit with him on can we pay on the 15th? That kind of thing. Real life that was happening at that moment. And he started talking to me about sales. And he's like, it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do. You can have the best product on the planet. You can have the best t-shirts. You can know absolute best product. But if there's not somebody selling that every day, all day, it doesn't matter how good your product is. So he's like, sometimes you have to stop focusing on exactly what you do and how good you do it and just focus on sales. And it's sometimes the things people put off. It's easy to put off. It's easier to do the to-do list and do the creative part and do the fun stuff than making those hard cold calls or calling that customer that you really want a larger order for. And so he was just like, you have to focus on sales every day, no matter what you do, no matter what your occupation, you're in sales, like it or not. You're in sales. And you might be great at what you do, but if you're not selling it to anybody, it doesn't matter. And that I have tried to think about that every day, all day. Okay, which one of these tasks actually are going to sell something? Because that has to be priority. Dollar tasks have to be on top because otherwise things start dwindling for you.
Yeah, that's really important. And I do think that it doesn't really matter what role you're in or what you do. You always do touch on sales. Always touch on sales, engineering and everything. It just feels like everything does it. So I have a hard time with the word sales. I don't like be salesy, but I like to think of it more as education than sales.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me feel better. But you have that piece, and I think it's interesting that it was a landlord that was telling you this, right?
Yeah, he was an amazing businessman. He had built a really impressive oil business, and he just had a real grasp on that. He was really into relationships. He was really into people. I think he was very smart financially, but he just had that pulse that he knew that was the bottom line. If he wasn't selling every day, his business wasn't moving forward. And so I had never thought about it in that frame of mind. Of course, I was in sales, but I'd never thought about it quite that important. It was always more important, what's the quality of our t-shirts? What do they look like? And all that's important. That's not putting any of that down, but it's not quite as important as selling. Because if you're not selling, it doesn't matter how good the stuff is. Yeah. You have to have sales. Yeah.
Yeah. Really insightful.
Yeah. Good lesson for me.
So, Suzanne, what about looking back on your career and your journey? Is there something that you were like, oh my goodness, I really wish I could go back and do that again? Because I would do it so much differently with what I know now than I did back.
Absolutely. 2008, I would have completely redone how we handled it. I had never encountered a recession. I had never encountered business loss. I had never, I never had those kind of things come about. So here we are at an all-time high. I have lots of employees. We have large presses. We're putting out massive product. We're rolling. And I had oil companies that worked with me in particular that had, they'd go to a trade show and have $30,000 to spend for that trade show of merchandise or whatever. Well, they started having 1,500 and 500, and can I just get some pins? So I didn't lose clients, but I lost ginormous volume. And I just was like, this isn't going to last. We've had like so many years of this isn't going to last. And I kept my people and I used all my reserves and we stayed the same size. And then it's like, okay, this is lasting. And I just waited too long. Had I pivoted right at the beginning, like I ended up pivoting and downscaling and getting smaller digs and not having so many people, had I done that faster, I don't think we'd have suffered so much. It was those were some hard, lean years. And in hindsight, sometimes when something worldwide like that is happening, I needed to make a much bigger jump. It wasn't just my city. Obviously in 2008, everybody was like, and I learned a lot during that time. So 2020 wasn't as hard on us because I had all those lessons from '08. And I knew we had to pivot faster and change. And so that was very helpful. I learned a lot from that.
Mm-hmm. A hard lesson, right?
Oh man, there's a lot of hard lessons in business. That is a fact. A lot of hard lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is interesting. Like the COVID era was what you were thinking the 2008 era was going to be, like where it was a slight downturn and then things came back and it was a pretty quick recovery.
Yeah. We were able to get our roll again. Exactly. That's what I thought in my 20-something mind that 2008 was going to be. And it was much rougher than that. Yeah. It was a hard overcome for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking back and I'm like, but how do you know which one you're going to have? How do you know if it's like a 2008 or a 2020? Like that, if you had a crystal ball, then I could see.
Absolutely. If you had a crystal ball, that would make a difference. But I think even in the first few months of '08 or whatever exact 2007, when it started happening, it wasn't a client who had this kind of drop. It was like all my clients. So that was really the difference. Because even in 2020, I had certain industries like my restaurants immediately, they were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
My builders, not so much. They still were building. They were still going. My oil companies, they were still going. Whatever, banks were fine. So there was lots of industries that were kind of okay because they were considered essential. My hospitals, matter of fact, ambulance work went up for me. Things went up. So it was different in that there was just industry specific, where '08 was everybody. Like everybody was struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And that feels right. Like it's just, there's a difference in severity and you could see it.
Yeah.
And if you had more experience, probably,
absolutely.
I guess we only gain experience by going through the hard parts to learn it.
I agree. If you don't have hard parts, you never learn what's like on the other side and learn those lessons and not make those same mistakes. Because it's that adage, you don't know what you don't know. And that is true every day. You do not know what you don't know. So when something happens, you're like, no idea that could have happened that way. But how do you learn that unless you go through it? So
yeah. So tell me, if you could go back and talk to yourself at the beginning of this journey, what would you tell her?
Oh, man. I think I would stress less about the actual business activities. In the beginning, you spent so much time worrying about, do we have the right ink system? Are we bringing in the right t-shirt brands? Are we doing this? Are you doing that? And really focusing on the bottom line dollars. Because I think in the first few years, we didn't charge enough. We didn't realize our value. We were just kind of base. And so I think we could have stayed longer. We could have made more money and been a little more profitable, even going into like '08, had we known that. So just because somebody says your t-shirt's worth 6 or 10 or 20 or 50, whatever, you have to figure that out more completely in your business and really focus on the dollars. I probably should have paid for better CPA and business help, because I think we made some decisions that maybe an advisor who had a better financial backing could have helped us see those things versus make those mistakes because we just didn't have that experience.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point too. Like looking for those partners that have that experience, because your job is making t-shirts, not deciding, on the spreadsheets and the books and the CPA and the taxes and stuff like that. So finding those partners that will help in those places that you don't have experience in quite yet. I bet you know it now.
Absolutely. There's a lot of data bank there I've got. But now when I have a big decision like that, I do go to advisors. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have choice A, B, and C. Financially, which one should we do? And, even now, I don't make all those decisions by myself because I know that's not my gold spot. I have places I can shine. That necessarily my best decision. I don't want to look at the spreadsheet and decide which one is going to be the best percentage in the end. I just need somebody else to analyze that, and then I make the best decision. So I know now advisors are absolutely essential to your bottom line.
Yeah, I like that. And vice versa. Like I'm not dealing with like logo wear or anything like that. Like I am happy to let you do that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't want stacks of t-shirts in my office. I just want Suzanne to take care of that sort of thing. So I think that leveraging those partners, that's a really good lesson to go back and tell yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody needs that. In whatever you're not the best at, get help with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Yeah.
What scared you the most when you started your career? Is there anything that was terrifying, and does it still scare you? Did you work through it?
Yeah. I definitely was scared of the unknown. I think there was so much unknown. I didn't know how things operated or how I could get this or get that. And I didn't know about the advisors. I didn't know who to go to. It was all on me. And I definitely felt that. I had mostly male partners, and they were the craftsmen. Like they were the experts in screen printing and art and all the things. So everybody looked to me to make the business decisions because I was the outward, and so all of that unknown definitely scared me, held me back. I think I made decisions sometimes that were like a little jumpy because I didn't know. And so the unknown still, I definitely affects me now. You don't know what the economy is going to do. You don't know but same thing. I can just relax and be like, okay, our business is set. We have a plan, we have operations, we have sales. It's going to be what it's going to be. So I don't have to be so afraid. I think I can just look to the system and move, and that's huge for me. Taking the leap, just do what you do. Go forward. Yeah.
Where'd you find the advisors? Was it the coaches that kind of got you in touch with the people that could help you make those decisions? Because it sounds like you got your team there, and then you're like, okay, I don't have to be so terrified because they understand this sort of thing and they can give me advice here.
Yeah, I just kind of slowly collected people. As you got a good business coach, they're like, I think this bookkeeper would be good for you. I think meet this CPA. And I changed a lot through the years. If there was one who didn't feel exactly like we do, I had some that maybe weren't as forgiving or willing to work in the gray. I wanted a CPA that saw some of the things that were gray. So I just had to kind of keep upgrading and changing. And the team has changed. It's similar people, but it's different people that have gone through the years. Some have been here for a long time. I've been with the current coach for 10 years probably now, and a CPA for several years. But I think that's also part of it, is being willing to adapt. When something's not working, look for another one of them, or just be willing to pivot, be willing to look for somebody different if you need to. But if you find somebody that's good for you, keep them in your circle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about any unique challenges because you were a woman and along your journey?
When I first started, there was not women in screen printing. Like, that was pretty unusual. Most of the men were salesmen. Most of the crafters were men. It came out of the 60s, and all the guys started screen printing shops in their garage, and it kind of just moved. It was a very male-dominated industry. So when I started coming into businesses to sell, they were not expecting a woman to be selling to them. I was accepted, and I never had any crazy obstacles with it, but I had to get over that idea that I was probably one of the only women they ever had come in. And then I think just the challenge of balancing the mom and the business and the where I wanted to be. I wanted to be with my kids, and that's where my heart was, and the business just had to adapt to that. I wasn't gonna let it go. But that is a challenge, I think. I think when a kid is sick, it tends to fall to the mom. I wanted it to, in all honesty. I wasn't going to leave my sick kids. I wanted it to be me that took care of it. But that's a challenge when you're the one running the company and the face every day. It's a challenge to try to balance that when they're little and getting it all together. But I think, all of us are, again, more resilient than we think. We're really strong, and people are more adaptable than we give them credit for. You're thinking, oh, the team's not going to be able to do this if I'm not there. Or what if such and such doesn't happen? If you've surrounded yourself with good people, if you have good staff, if you have good people, will pick up the slack. That's the idea of having good people around you, so that you can stop when you need to.
Yeah. I think that is interesting, that idea of like tribe, or getting your people, put together, people that are like-minded, that are working towards that kind of same goal. And then the hard part for me, at least, is then I have to let go. Then I have to let them.
Yeah. Delegation, that's a whole different conversation. But I agree. It is hard to let go. It's your baby, especially if it's something you've built. It's your baby and your reputation and your everything. So letting go is definitely a difficult, it's a learned skill for sure. It took me a lot of years to decide I could let go. And I probably still have things I harbor pretty close to my circle. I don't really want to let them go. But, you definitely learn to trust your team. Learn to trust your tribe. Learn to, rely on them. Because they grow by that too. If I have finally let my team or tribe take on something without me, man, that's a confidence boost for them. I, for a while, didn't realize how important that is to them, that I trusted them enough to let them do it, gave them a boost. They're a better employee. They're a better, whatever, because I let go. So it's just as important to them as it is to get it off my plate.
Yeah. And is your company set up now a little bit so that like you took some of those challenges you had from starting a company and being an entrepreneur and balancing your mom duties and things like that? Have you set up your company so that it's a little bit more friendly towards those balances?
I think so. My office manager was able to work a similar schedule as me. It was important for her to be with her kids too. So we always worked around her kids' school schedule, and she was able to work from home hours. And so I think I understood that. I could definitely follow and help her with that situation. So I do think learning how to balance my own has made me a better employer for letting people figure out and balance what they can do. And, it's hard. There's some occupations, if our screen presses are running, you have to be here. Somebody's got to catch shirts. There's certain things that can't be as adaptable, but office work and calls and things can be done from anywhere. And so I can be adaptable in some positions and not as much in others. But I do think I'm more sensitive to it and definitely pay better attention to people.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And I love that your experience is now helping and growing those that you're making it just a little bit easier on the next set of people that are kind of
Yeah,
coming through that. So,
I hope so. Yeah.
what is the thing you are most proud of, Suzanne?
Oh, let's see. At home, I'm the most proud of my family. I have a 25-year-old son and a 19-year-old son who are successful human beings and will make a difference in this world. So I'm proud of that at home. And I'm really proud that we've had this business for almost 31 years. There's not a lot of people that can say they survived in business. And, there were some lean years, there's some terrible years, but I'm proud we made it through. We fought and did what it took to make it here. And so I'm very proud of that.
I love that. That is a really successful business. That's 31 years. That's a long time. Great
It
job.
was a long time. Thank you. Hence some of the gray hair I have and the wisdom that comes with those years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's quite similar too. I know that you had your kids and you're proud of them and they're going out and doing great things, but you actually did like grow a business as well, like 30 years worth of time and energy into this company that is going to have a life for hopefully
Absolutely.
lots and lots more years, right?
I agree. That is the plan.
So, any advice for a young lady who's just kind of starting down the path that you're already successful at? That it's so interesting. Like I'm not sure that as a young woman, I go, well, okay, I could be a insurance person or like screen printing. Like I'm not sure I would even think of that job, right? But I think it's so cool. So how would you talk to that young woman? What advice would you have for her that would help her succeed like you?
Yeah, I think people have to be not afraid to take a leap. You know, just because everybody says you have to go to college or not, or this or that, you have to figure out what you want for you. And if at 18 you say, I don't want to go to school, that's okay. But you know what? At 20, if you say, I want to go to school, great. No decision you make right this second defines your whole life. There's so few decisions in life that define your whole 80 years or what. And so I think sometimes people are so afraid to make that decision that they make one they feel is a little safer. Well, just take the leap. Try something, because the worst that could happen is it doesn't work out and you do something else. But you never know. Like, I didn't know I was going to be a good businesswoman. We could have gone out of business in 6 months, but we said, let's try, let's do this, because we can always do something else and go back to work for somebody. So don't be afraid to make bold decisions and go for what you want to do. You can always change your mind. You can
I
always
love it.
change your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, you can always pivot. I love that. That is so smart. And they do a lot of times, you like are expected to have your like whole future mapped out at age 18, like you're knowing exactly what you're going into, exactly what you're going to be, all that sort of thing. And I think that lessens the possibilities for those and puts them under a lot of pressure, but lessens the possibilities for those young people.
Yeah, I agree. When maybe you do start school just in general, but you don't have to decide, I'm going to be X at 18 and no. Because how many people know what they want to do at 18? Not a lot. And that's okay, but I don't think they're told that's okay very much.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're told, no, you got to, let's take a test. Let's figure out what you want to do. Let's nail it down, and that's a hard, position, I think, for a young person to be in. Just think about all the things you might want to do and try some. Go try them for a while. Be in a building with a doctor. Be in a building with, shadow something. What do you think of it? You have no way to know what you don't know. You don't know if you're going to hate it or fall in love with it until you try it.
And a really good idea to do that young, because if you've already put 6 or 8 or whatever, how many years into like this one career and then discover you don't like it.
Exactly. It's much better to pivot when you're younger. But even then, I've known people that pivoted at 50 and are thrilled out of their hearts. I think that's a general good advice for anybody. If you're not happy, do something different, try something different, get some education, change it up. It's okay. Just be brave.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne, for spending some time with us and just sharing your story and your journey. I've really enjoyed it. If I have a young lady who's listening who wants to ask you a question or pick your brain, how does she get a hold of you?
Absolutely. We have a website, which I'm assuming you can put there. They can reach out to me from that. I'm happy to have anybody email me or call me. I love to mentor people. I love to ask questions. So I am happy to talk to anybody. They can definitely reach out.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for your time. I've really appreciated it.
Thank you so much for having me.